Thank you all for being here so we can get more information out to our community. We are joined here today by our partners who are helping us to put this investigation together to get these folks back into custody. We are joined here by the FBI, the new SAC who's in the back. We are also joined by our partners at the New Orleans Police Department, Chief Gonthier, the State Police. We've got a couple of members of the State Police also here to support us. Crime Stoppers and CEO Cosenza. And we are going to start off with OPSO Major Silas Phipps Jr., who is over our Investigative Services Bureau, to give you an update about that. We'll then have Chief Jay Mallett, who is our warden over the jail, to discuss a little bit more about that. Major Stephanie Minto, who is our Crime Victims Reparations Unit Commander. Darlene Cosenza will be next after that, and then the SAC from the FBI will be final. Major Phipps.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Sheriff. Thank you all for being here. I'll start by providing you an update on where we are with the investigation. Just an overview of the original timeline. So at approximately 8:30 this morning, OPSO jail operations staff found that several inmates on Pod 1 Delta were missing during their head count. That jail staff immediately began a systematic search of the facility for those inmates as members of our investigatory team began combing through video to see where they could have gone. At the time of the incident, there was no deputy physically on Pod 1 Delta, and the technician that was assigned to the housing unit module had actually stepped away to grab food. After reviewing video, we noticed that at 12:22 a.m., several inmates on Pod 1 Delta were observed jarring one of the sliding doors open, specifically on cell Delta 1006. At 12:43 a.m., those same individuals entered that cell. At 1 a.m., they were observed on camera exiting our facility using an adjacent loading dock door, so a loading dock door adjacent to that pod, and subsequently going down a side road behind our building, our secure perimeter between the Phase 3 facility that's currently under construction. At 1:19 a.m., they were then observed scaling the fence along the I-10 between our building and the currently under construction Phase 3, using blankets to avoid being cut by the barbed wire. Those individuals subsequently ran across the westbound and eastbound lanes of I-10 and then entered the neighborhood. This morning, after investigators became involved, they subsequently found clothing that they shed in that neighborhood. Although it was previously reported that there were 11 escapees, there were 10. 9 remain at large. 1 was apprehended earlier today, which you've covered, and 1 person previously reported as an escapee was located inside the facility. As of right now, 3 employees have been placed on suspension pending the outcome of this fluid and ongoing investigation. We do have a video we're going to play with you, and I will kind of narrate just to kind of show you what I've already said, and then I'll go from there after. So if you take a look at the screen. So as you see here, on the screen, going to open this sliding door to the cell that they used to escape. The whole, this is how we use it. So, yeah.
Can you start it over?
Sure.
We'll provide this with $2 off.
All right, so you see them jarring open the door. They get it open. Subsequently, they go inside that cell, and this is where you see them exiting the loading dock door. As you know, if you notice, they are carrying blankets with them. This road that they're going out of is behind this building, as I explained. They subsequently go through another door, and here, at some point, you can see them come through here, and they scale the fence through this door that's near the construction site. They scale that fence, and then make good on their escape, crossing all lanes of I-10. see them going across as we speak. So, and as Casey said, we will share those videos with you all.
So if you had video of them,
1 second, we still have more to go.
Yeah. We would like to acknowledge the over 200 law enforcement personnel that are assisting this investigation. They represent partner agencies, the Louisiana State Police, Department of Public Safety and Corrections, Louisiana Office of Probation and Parole, Louisiana Attorney General's Office, the New Orleans Police Department, the Orleans and East Jefferson Levitt District Police Departments, United States Marshal's Office, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Homeland Security Investigations, the Office of Alcohol, Tobacco Control, and Explosives, the St. Tammany and St. Bernard Parish Sheriff's Offices. I will now turn it over to Chief Jay Mallett.
Thank you. What I would like to do is kind of point to you where we believe is the exit point of where the inmates left. What you're looking at here is a vantage point where you're behind the cell in the pipe chase. And as you can see, these are rebars that reinforce the structure. There are clean cuts here, and plumbing had been removed. All this on the outside of the cell, behind, in the pipe chase. This is how it looks initially. As you can see, we have bolts that hold those fixtures in place. These are, again, on the back side into the pipe chase. All of this has been removed, and these have been clean cut. We have reason to believe that there was some assistance with this. That's why we're thoroughly investigating. And as Major Fisher said, we placed 3 individuals on administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation.
Thank you, Major.
Good afternoon, all. I am Major Stephanie Minter Gibson, and I oversee the Crime Victims Unit for the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. Once I was notified about the escapees, I immediately gathered a team of experienced staff, and we started calling victims and survivors just to make sure that they are aware of what was going on and that they are safe. For the records that had no information, I immediately reached out to our partners such as NOPD Special Victims Unit, Detective Walton, who was very grateful in helping us, and she provided us with other information that we were able to call those families and help them as well. Once we finished the first batch of victims, we started calling the second batch, and actually the reason why I'm saying that is because I separated them. The chief from the DA's office, victims, Alison Morgarder, reached out to me, and we both were calling victims. What she had and I did not have, we shared information, and we both gathered all the information, and we made sure all victims were aware of what was going on. Most of the victims were very grateful for the calls. They graciously thanked us. We additionally sent our detectives to their homes for more safety measures, and that alone speaks measures. I strongly encourage all to educate the community on the importance of VineLink. This is a free app that is listed online, and it is also a guide for victims and survivors to track offenders while they navigate the criminal justice system. The number for Vine is 1-800-277-7477. I'm sorry, it's 1-866-277-7477. We are located here on the 3rd floor of the Sheriff's Office, and our contact number here is 504-827-6754, 504-202-9229. Thank you.
Good evening. As you know, Crime Stoppers has been in this community offering anonymous, asking for anonymous tips and offering cash rewards for that information for over 40 years, close to 50 years. And what we do is we allow you to come forward through either a phone number, and that number you hear it every day, 504-822-1111. can go to the crimestoppersgno.org website and post a tip, or you can use our mobile app. It's Crime Stoppers GNO Say It Here. No matter how you come to Crime Stoppers, you remain anonymous. We're not tracking your IP, we're not tracking your phone number, we're not asking you to be a witness. But what we're asking you to do today to help the individuals here is to make the call. If you know someplace that someone likes to frequent, you know someplace that they may be, somewhere they might visit, a friend that might be helping, give the call, make the call, send the tip. Now today we're also announcing an increased reward of $2,000 on each apprehension. So if there are 9 individuals that we're looking for, that's $2,000 on each of the 9 individuals. You have to go through Crime Stoppers. We asked you to come through Crime Stoppers because we're going to keep you anonymous. That's the trusted program. That's the way that we operate. But know that the reward is there if your information leads to the apprehension, and that will come from law enforcement. Thank you.
FBI.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Tapp, Special Agent in charge of the FBI here in New Orleans. FBI New Orleans has a command post up and running to help search for the escaped inmates. We are offering a reward of up to $5,000 for information leading to the arrest of any of these escaped inmates. If you have information on their whereabouts, we're asking you call 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit a tip online to fbi.gov/New Orleans fugitives. We're working side by side with our law enforcement partners. New Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office remains the lead investigative agency here, and we are helping. Thank you very much.
We'll take questions from each. Go ahead from Channel 4.
Yeah, is there any indication that friends or family on the outside were aware in advance or communicating about these plans?
And we're not going to get into the details of the investigation, Major Phipps, but we're looking at all angles.
What does it say, and I mean this respectfully, but you said, and I'm going to quote you here, that you observed those guys running out at 1 o'clock in the morning. What does it say for jailhouse safety and security when you see a jailbreak like that, but you fail to notify anyone, NOPD, the public, anyone?
We didn't say that.
What did you say then?
Yeah. We observed on the video later this morning. We had to pull that
You
video.
said you
back.
observed at 1 a.m.
So let's be clear. I said what we observed on the video through the investigation. So yes, when they looked at the video this morning after the staff realized they were gone, my investigators found that at 1 a.m. that's what happened.
So no one was watching live video all night at the jail.
I won't say no one was watching live video,
Then
but
how did nobody see them
there are
leaving the
over
jail?
900 cameras.
How did nobody see them leaving the jail?
There are over 900 cameras in this facility. Travis.
How did no one see a massive jailbreak?
The why and how is part of the investigation. So we have interviewed, I think, all of our employees, and we are interviewing all of the residents of that particular pod as well. And then there's a lot of people that you've got to wade through their interviews to find out, to get down to the details of what happened. There was somebody on duty.
Sheriff, the source told us that phone calls haven't been monitored over the past week, and escaped inmates were planning how they were going to get out through phone calls. Were y'all monitoring phone calls?
We monitor phone calls all the time. There are 1,400 people in this jail, over the City Council 1250 limit. So can you monitor every single person every day? No, we don't have the bodies to do that. But we do monitor, and we rely on tips, and we have an intelligence unit that monitors what's going on in the jail. There's a lot of things at any given time going
But
on.
it's your job. It's your job to monitor every single person in this facility every day.
Visually, with our deputies on the pods. Yes.
I did have a question. The former sheriff, Marlon Gusman, he disputes the claims that there were a lot of issues here at the facility after he left. Do you stand by your statement about the issues with it? And also, we learned that you have a $14 million fund balance. Why wasn't that money used to repair the locks? If you could talk about that.
Can I speak to the I can speak more intelligently, I believe, to the physical plan in the jail. Not necessarily design, but at some point this jail was planned, and it was obviously planned to be a minimum custody facility. I don't know what the dynamics of the population was in New Orleans as far as those incarcerated around that time, but that is not the dynamic now. Right now we have 24 pods, and 90% of those pods are populated with high security inmates. Those are people that are predatory, assaultive, violent, and aggressive. So we were in the process now of developing an ad-seg unit because we identified a large number of individuals that needed to be on some type of restrictive housing environment that did not exist at this facility. So it's plenty of deficiencies when we start to talk about the physical plant. So it's not correct to say that those things didn't exist because, I mean, they're prevalent.
This jail opened in 2015, and in 2022 they never had a jailbreak. So when you say it's not built for that,
Well, you got to think about.
They never had a jailbreak.
You got to think about. The sheriff says that all the time. She talks about the 83% recidivism rate. So you got people in and out of here all the time. So they've been here and know the place. No. I said when you started talking, I said it was built. Had to be built for a minimum. So you started talking. You started talking about locks. I don't know of a max security inmate. Right now they had an objective classification system in place. I don't know if that was in place to identify properly if there were max security. It may have been everybody clumped together. We know now, based on our objective criteria, that we do have people that are classified at a higher security level than what this particular facility was built for.
Yeah, Chief. Talking about failures in the pods, is there a maintenance and service contract at this time in place? Is there a maintenance and service contract in place? We're talking about failures within the pod. Once again, is there a maintenance and service contract in place? Travers gets asked multiple questions. We're asking another question.
I really can't hear you loud, buddy.
Is there a maintenance and service contract in place with the pods?
There's a murderer in there, right, who had already been convicted, and he was in among these 10, right? Were they in separate cells?
Everyone is everyone here is two to a cell, and that's what we have. And we've been in constant communication with anybody that's been convicted with the Department of Corrections to come and pick up those individuals that have been convicted. We have 78 individuals right now. We've been in communication with the Department of Corrections, and they're assured us that they're going to come and get these individuals.
What about Derrick Rose?
I'm not familiar with Derrick Rose if he's been sentenced. I know he's been here for a long period of time. So if he's been recently sentenced, that's great. He would have been on our list. He may be aware of that. He'll be on our list to go to the Department of Corrections. But the Department of Corrections and Public Safety have worked with us to move several inmates that have been sentenced. They come twice a week. I just got off the phone when I stepped out here then with the Department of Corrections to identify how many individuals we have that have been sentenced, that are taking up space, that are high security people, that have long sentences, and they all are violent.
And what's being done to protect the witnesses
difference
in that case? Is there something being done to protect the witnesses who testified against him?
I deal with the jail, so there'll be someone.
That's what Captain Mental addressed earlier. All those have been in contact.
Talking about the pods and the deteriorating conditions, is there a maintenance and service contract in place to make repairs? And we're also hearing that critical cameras were down for weeks.
We have, this is our CFO, Bianca Brown, to talk more about that.
Hi, so I'm Bianca Brown. So based upon the question that you asked earlier about the fund balance related to the 2023 audit, I'll give you a breakdown of that. $4.2 million was related to accounts payable. $9.5 million was related to FEMA restricted cash, but capital projects only. The seizure and restricted cash had about $98,000 in it due to others, which was processing fee, DA fees, clerk of courts, NOPD property room. They get about $97,000 of that money. We had due to the Department of Public Safety for civilian backgrounds that we conduct. That was about $400,000. And then we also had a detail account that's kind of restricted for radios, body cameras, tactical gear, software, and maintenance for the deputies that they pay based upon their details. So that doesn't exist. That's failed. That money doesn't exist. That was from a 2023 audit that they're reporting on, and those funds don't exist. As of today, that balance is about $6.3 million that is still due out as of 2025.
So if we could answer my question, we asked the question, nobody answered.
What is your question?
Once again, we asked multiple times, is there a maintenance and service contract in place to take care of the deteriorating conditions within the pods and within the jail?
We can't afford a maintenance and service contract. So right now, we can't afford a maintenance and service contract. We have maintenance staff that are on board that do the day-to-day. But right now, our current budget sits at about $68 million. $41.1 million comes from the city, $13 million comes from the millage, and about $10.1 million a quarter is given to us. Right now, our payroll is about $9.6. Our food expenses is $780,000 a quarter. That eats up the money. We don't have the funding available to have a full maintenance contract to do this. We've explained this on multiple occasions. Just on Monday, we went to the City Planning Commission and we reported this out. We asked for the money to secure this. So the funding is not available to do what needs to be done, and it hasn't been done.
Not appropriate enough to handle violent offenders like the ones that escaped today. Have you all considered potentially shipping them elsewhere?
We can't afford it.
Let him answer this question before you. Your budget is bigger than Marlon Gusman's was. Do you all realize that the last sheriff had a smaller budget than you have?
The budget was bigger, but guess what? Things are being deprived. So what you're seeing is a result of what's happening now. Broken doors, you got facilities, wear and tear. All of that is occurring now due to that budget. This size facility, this should have a $150 million budget easily. The budget that we have, it doesn't support what we need. I've laid out the numbers. You see, it's critical.
I want, if I could, speak to what you said, have we explored shipping outboarding individuals? Yes, we have. We've sent out numerous individuals, high security people, to various places. Department of Corrections and Public Safety has helped us with that. We've sent people to Plaquemine. We've sent people to Catahoula. We've sent people to Madison. We've sent people to Angola. 30%, almost 40% of those individuals we send get remanded back for various reasons. So that takes up space. And the ones we sent to Catahoula, this is important, the ones we sent to Madison and the ones we sent to Plaquemine, all of these are parole violators. So these people are convicted felons that committed a crime here in New Orleans as either a pass-through, having fun, or whatever they were doing, and they ended up in the jail.
And look, circling back, what are you specifically doing to capture these violent offenders?
What do you mean?
What is the sheriff's office doing right now to capture these violent offenders?
The sheriff's office is working along with the 200 partner offices that I mentioned earlier at actually capturing these individuals. We're providing critical intel. So we are combing through those phone calls and other messages you mentioned earlier to identify who they communicated with, where they could potentially be. So along with our partners, we are visiting those locations in search of those individuals.
Are those video calls on those iPads recorded as well? Video calls on iPads?
I can't answer whether those are recorded. I know the phone calls are recorded. I don't want to say yes or no on the video call.
Here's a question.
Specifically,
Yes.
what are y'all doing?
Chief Malley just said yes, they are recorded as well.
Murder.
All right, we have one more question.
Okay.
Go ahead. Tabone, you haven't had one.
The surveillance that we saw that they were wearing their orange jumpsuits, but you said when they got into the neighborhood they shed their clothes. Was someone there waiting to give them a change of clothes? Did they have clothes as contraband underneath their jumpsuits?
So right now we can't say, we haven't seen all of the video to say that from the neighborhood on whether they had additional clothing, but what we knew is they shed some of their orange.
And the CMT is a civilian position,
Correct.
right? Should maximum security inmates be watched by a civilian CMT? And if you could talk a little bit more, I know you said that they were on a break. Could you give us some more specifics on that?
Sure. So yes, the CMT is a corrections monitoring technician. She is a civilian. She sits in a pod module and observes the pod. That is primarily when we do not have the physical deputy staff to sit on the pod. We have a vacancy rate like every other correctional agency in the country. Every corrections has a 55% vacancy rate across this country. Like us, we are underfunded, understaffed, underpaid. So we do our best to hire staff and retain them, but like everyone else, we're short. So yes, this civilian was assigned to the pod module to observe the pod. When she stepped away to grab food, that is when they began their attempts to escape. By the time she returned, they were already into the cell or gone. So she did not even know that they had made good on their escape or made an attempt to escape.
Sheriff, do you want to say?
I don't have that time in front of me.
People, I think everybody's live in here. Do you want to say you're sorry to the people of New Orleans for having this happen? I mean, we've heard from you several times today, but do you want to offer any kind of contrition or apology to people for something like this happening?
Well, first we have to find out exactly what happened and how they got out. We think this was intentional. There is much more than meets the eye in this investigation. And why did it happen just right now, right? In the middle, as we're getting ready to start this sheriff's race. This is very suspicious. We know that they had help. We're showing you they had help. This was coordinated. There's much more than meets the eye. When I have enough information, I'll be glad to talk to the community about my issues or what I need, anything I may need to apologize for. But what I'm telling you, I'm not finished. But what I'm telling you, this is a public safety issue first and foremost. There's much more than meets the eye. We are digging, and we are not going to stop.
Sheriff, what are you doing tonight to make sure that your facility is safe? What is OPSO doing tonight to make sure that this facility is safe and that no one else can escape? Once again, Sheriff. And once again, we're... All right, y'all got me?
Yes, we hear you, Chris. Go ahead.
And once again, the news conference just wrapping up with Sheriff Susan Hudson, as well as members of NOPD, Louisiana State Police, the FBI, as well as Crime Stoppers of New Orleans. Now, they did release some video, and they should be playing it again momentarily, where we can see the group of inmates, 10 inmates, escaping the pod and working their way, able to eventually scale a fence. We're told that they used blankets to be able to scale the fence. That way they weren't cut. And then they eventually ran across the Pontchartrain Expressway and were able to shed their clothes in a neighborhood. Now, the sheriff making a bold claim that, you know, this is all happening right as there is an election coming up. Now, the sheriff didn't elaborate whether or not she believes one of her political opponents is possibly trying to sabotage her, but throughout the day, there's been multiple questions about the timeline of release of information. The sheriff's office says that they discovered that these inmates were missing around 8:30 this morning. The public was notified at 10:30. The sheriff says earlier that she was notified at 9 o'clock this morning, and it took time to be able to search the facility, comb through surveillance video, and then reach out to the U.S. Marshals Task Force, which she says members of the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office are on that task force. And then once that task force is notified, the information is disseminated to the rest of the public. So there's been lots of questions about the timeline of release. I know NOPD Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick says that her department was not notified until 10:30 this morning, and then that's when she was able to get the violent offender warrant squad assembled to begin searching for these individuals. At that time of the NOPD press conference, that was around 11:30, give or take, and NOPD at that time did not have all of the names of the individuals, photos, some critical information to be able to search for these escaped inmates. So Superintendent Kirkpatrick making the point that time is of course of the essence to be able to push this information out to the public, as well as to some of the partners like Project NOLA, who have crime cameras scattered throughout the French Quarter, and other businesses that have some facial recognition software as well that they're partnering with NOPD on. So once again, you know, the sheriff and her team facing some really tough questions from journalists about the timeline of information being released, the escape, and how this plan was able to be executed. Once you can see right here in the photos just how intricate this plan was. Now, we do know that 3 people from the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office have since been suspended, and the sheriff's office says that, you know, their budget is extremely,
I wanted to ask, you know, they were talking about the CMT, which is basically a layperson, not a deputy, a person who's just a civilian working on the pod. This person is the one who got up to go get food, and that is when this breakout happened. So it remains to be seen, how did these guys know that this woman got up, left the area to go get food? Were they watching for her to leave? Were they, you know, kind of tracking her movements every night? They knew what time she would leave the pod, and that was their chance to try to get out. They didn't really give any insight into that, correct?
Yeah, no, Meg, they didn't give any insight into that whatsoever. But yeah, once that employee got up, the inmates made their move and they were able to escape. Now, we believe that is one of the 3 employees that is suspended this evening. So there's still a lot of questions that remain unanswered, and exactly how they were able to master this plan to get out. Once again, just looking at these photos, you can see that the sheriff's office says that there had to have some outside help, possibly help from the inside as well. But once again, that still remains under investigation at this time, and we did ask what the sheriff's office is doing to try and apprehend the 9 remaining suspects that are on the loose right now. And the sheriff's office says that they have their full force as well as their partners all looking for these individuals. But I don't know if that will necessarily bring comfort to anyone this evening, because once again, these are violent offenders that were able to escape, and right now there's no sign of them being captured anytime soon.
Another interesting point, I thought, is the woman who worked for the sheriff's office, who is the victim's advocate. She said that the sheriff's office worked with the NOPD to contact the victims. However, we know the NOPD was not notified about this until about 10:30 this morning. So that's 2 hours after the sheriff's office found out that potentially that's when victims' families were first getting notified about this.
Yeah, Megan, when you think about it, these inmates, they were able to escape sometime after 12, before 1 o'clock, and that gave them ample enough time before the public was ever notified or any other agencies about this escape, where they could have potentially went to one of these victims' houses, or somebody that was slated to testify against them, or even some of the judges that are handling these cases. So those were all very critical moments. And really, those inmates had ample time to be able to get as far away as Florida, go west to Texas, or even north, because we, once again, were not notified until about 10:30. We had a text from the sheriff's office spokesperson, Casey McGee, around 10:18, confirming that there was an escape, but a public press release was not sent out until about 10:30, and the sheriff's office held their first press conference earlier today. Shortly after 11 o'clock, the sheriff declined to answer any questions, and she talked about how there needs to be public safety and transparency needs to be top of mind, that there's going to be this investigation. But yet, at the time, the sheriff declined to answer any questions. And it wasn't until her second news conference around 2:30 this afternoon where the sheriff did finally open up a little bit about exactly how these inmates were able to escape and the search for them that continues.
And, the other thing, it strikes me that we don't know about this, Chris, this one person they caught, Kendall Miles, who was apparently in a hotel parking garage under a car. What we don't know is they certainly looked as though they were coordinating in the video that you showed when they were running, out of the loading dock. But, what were there one or two who were kind of stragglers who got in at the end? We don't, they kind of went their separate ways, and maybe we'll get more detail about that, and, how many ringleaders, or how many, was there kind of somebody who just took an opportunity and ran off with them?
Yeah, John, I mean, that's a really good point. That's something that we don't know at this point, and it's unclear how many people possibly were with this or near where this inmate was whenever they realized, oh, you know what, somebody's tracking me. We do know that one inmate that was captured was found underneath a vehicle in a parking garage, so possibly that gave them time, when police are focused on that individual, that possibly gave them time, if anyone else was with them, to run off. It's something that we just unfortunately don't know at this point.
Right.
But we do know that, of course, they're trying to use facial recognition cameras as well to track these people down.
And in fact, we talked to Brian Lagarde, who runs Project NOLA, Chris, and he was telling us that troopers, within just 10 minutes of getting this alert from the sheriff's office, within 10 minutes, they were able to use facial recognition technology to find actually 2 inmates. Now, Kendall Miles is the only one they were able to apprehend. The other person ran off, so that other person still remains at large. But it just shows how quickly they were able to utilize that to find these escapees, and if potentially they were alerted earlier in the morning about this, maybe they'd have more in custody right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've been to Project NOLA before, and it's really impressive seeing their network of cameras throughout the city and how they're able to use facial recognition, piece of clothing, license plates, vehicles. They're able to use those pieces of information and track them throughout the city. So it's definitely a critical tool that police could have potentially used much sooner if they had that information immediately available to them.
And the other thing, too, is, who knows? Maybe this individual or these 2 individuals had a plan, and their plan was sort of interrupted by the presence of police. It strikes me that going from a jailbreak to the quarter would not be the lowest profile spot to be in, but maybe there's some broader plan they had. The other thing I thought that was interesting, Chris, was of the 3 employees suspended, the sheriff didn't give any information about whether this was something routine, connected to the suggestion this is an inside job. You know, we don't know anything about why they specifically were suspended, do we?
No, the sheriff nor any member of her team, they didn't give any information as to why those employees were suspended. You know, unfortunately, we don't have that information, but, you know, we'll follow up with Casey McGee, the communications director, to see if, you know, we can get some of that information clarified.
All right, Chris Welty, live for us from the Sheriff's Office. Thank you, Chris, so much for that. We appreciate it.
You know, we heard a lot.